Alright, so welcome back to the channel. I first of all want to apologize just for the extremely long absence and being able to upload stuff. The biggest problem for me was for about a week and a half, I was sick, I had lost my voice, I couldn't talk. So in that aspect, obviously I couldn't film. And then also once I finally was better, I was stuck with a ton of Christmas parties and, friends, family. I had to go visit everybody, and then I couldn't find remotely a second to kind of sit down and film. So now that it's December the 30th, I can finally film for you guys and put something up just in time for the New Year's Eve. But actually, that kind of brings me to first point, which is my wrist check for the day, which is my Omega Seamaster. It is a vintage Seamaster from the late 1970s. It was my very first automatic watch. And actually probably my favorite watch that I own. It is an amazing watch. I love it to death, and it has an absolutely beautiful silver dial. It's simple, it's classy, it's elegant. I really like it on this leather strap. It's not the original strap though, but whatever. Life goes on. But yeah, it's amazing. I love the watch. And actually, as we talk about it being my favorite watch, that is a fantastic segue into talking about the topic for today, which is favoritism and favoritism in the classroom. If you notice, I'm gonna be kind of looking up and down a bit because there is so much content that I'm gonna try and cram into a very short amount of time, and I don't want it to get lost in the process. And there's a lot of deviations and rabbit trails I could go on that I don't want to do. So if I'm it's just for me to stay focused, okay? So that's why it's there. So and this was probably one of the most requested questions that was asked in the Q&A. So yeah, basically it kind of boils down to two things. Students or former students most of the time, they come up and ask me, well, who's your favorite student? As if I would tell you. It's honestly, it's probably the dumbest question you can possibly get. I hate that question. It bothers me. I'm big face palm, just done. So, and then there's also people that I'll, interact with in social gatherings or hang out with, or people when they find out I'm a teacher, just acquaintances or strangers or whatever. And they're like, oh, well, what's your, it almost seems weird because a lot of people, once they find out you're a teacher, it's like, oh, well, your interactions, they're like, oh, well, what do you think of this? What do you do about this? What about this? It's like, was my teacher like this? I'm like, yeah, I don't know anything about your teachers, unless I work with them. But yeah, so they'll ask me, one of the questions is, it's like, well, do you ever, have show favoritism in the classroom? And I was just like, well, no, I try, I very much try not to. But I want to bring this to kind of a bit of more of an absolute statement, because a lot of teachers like to avoid the question by saying, no, I don't have favorites. And I think that's a lie. They do have favorites, they just won't tell you, okay? Everybody has favorites. And unless you're a really, really weird person who just literally scans everybody like a robot, like you're the Terminator and you see nothing. But that chances are that's not gonna happen. So what I want to do is I want to kind of bring it into two categories of how does favoritism arise, okay? So how does that arise? How do you become the favorite? And there's two kinds of ways. So the first of all I'm going to talk about is more of a behavioral way. So if you are, let's say you're sitting in classroom, you are I'm not necessarily saying you have to be extremely intelligent or brilliant to kind of fall in this category, but if you listen extremely well, if you follow all the rules, you do your homework, you do all these things, you basically, the idea is that you are a favorite, you're a byproduct of making the teacher's life easier. If the teacher's life is easier, they're obviously going to regard you in a much higher light than if you're making the teacher's life miserable. If you're always talking back, being a total turd, then the teacher probably ain't going to like you that much. It's very simple. It's like we're kind of like water in that way. We like the path of least resistance. We like people who are easy to get along with. We don't like working with people who are hard to get along with. This isn't rocket science. It's human nature. So when people say no favorites, I'm just like, are you really? But so there's that. They arise out of behavior. They arise because they make your job so easy, it's great to be around them. And you have Students, you guys have coworkers who are probably like that. Like, they, all of a sudden it's like there was a mess that was made, and all of a sudden they cleaned it up for you, and you're like, oh my goodness, that person's amazing. Because they make your job so much easier. They make your life easier. They don't make your life hard, okay? And you love them for it. Now, there's the second kind of people that outside of this, there's something I refer to as genuine human interaction and connection. You connect with those individuals. Now, the way that most people are going to connect with, your coworkers. Let's say you're at a brand new position. You just get hired on, and there's coworkers, a few coworkers in the, and you sit down in the staff lunchroom. You sit there and you're kind of looking around, and you don't know your place, whatever. You're gonna most likely get along better over time with the people that have similar interests to you, right? It makes logical sense. I am not gonna sit there and listen to someone talk about anime for 6 hours. I would die. Not that I think that anime is bad. Anime is actually pretty cool, some of it. But I mean, that's not my thing. You want to talk about hockey for 6 hours? I could probably do that right then and there. Basketball, shoes maybe, watches, cars. Come on. That's like this. So the thing is like when you have students that are going to interact with you, and their interactions maybe, and I'm not saying this is aside from the good student, right? This is like human, who they are as a person, their hobbies, their likes, their dislikes, that kind of like that. So when you're interacting with them, oh well, of course, the student, if they like cars or they like these, they're gonna be cooler. You are immediately gonna be like, yeah, I have more respect for you. Not in the sense of like I have more respect for you as a person, but it's like I like you more because we connect better. In the same way that you're gonna make friends. Not saying that you should be friends with students. I think that's like it's really unprofessional and bad. But when you're within that realm of the classroom, it is much easier to want to talk about the sports, especially like I've had students who talk all the time about hockey, and I'd be like, yeah, I really like hockey, so of course I'm going to interact with you. Do I really want to talk about the Sephora and your makeup? No, I don't. Like, I just don't. That was the store that like my ex-girlfriend would drag me in all the time, and I'd be like, oh my goodness, I don't want to do that. That's terrible. Ugh. So, I'm not saying there's not good things in Sephora, but anyways, besides the point. So we talk about that, and then there's what I would say, there's like a list of negatives I want to cover and what makes them bad. You have social alienation. I call this the Disney's Recess Randall edition. Okay, so if you remember Randall from Disney's Recess, he was the teacher's basically pet, and he would run around with his stupid little notebook writing down infractions. Like he's not even a cop. He's like the bylaw officer that's like doing stuff, and like you don't like those people. You don't like those people who tattle on you all the time. No one likes you. Stop it. It pisses people off. It's not saying you don't have to be like, don't be the rat, but like, just no. Like, I don't even like those people. As a teacher, if the kid, like, not so much in junior high and like high school, but elementary, kids like runs around and like, this. I'm like, leave me alone. I don't care. Well, not that I don't care, but it's just annoying. Please. Just let's be normal. Okay, I like that. Anyways, so it creates social alienation because it basically forces you as that person all of a sudden are like over here operating in a different kind of set of rules and everything as opposed to the rest of the people. You're basically the tendril of the teacher, and that's just no. Okay, so what also that does is that creates kind of an unfair environment, right? So this is, how can I put this, is that usually this comes into discipline, right? Because if a teacher has like a favorite, they're going to be getting away with stuff. Now some teachers actually the opposite. They hold them to an extremely high standard of excellence, not just in academics, but also in like personality, personal like way of life. And so they'll be like that instead. But so like there'll be sometimes where just like students will get away with literally anything and everything, and then all of a sudden like another kid just steps over the line like a little bit, and all of a sudden the end of the world's happening. It's like, they'll write you up to send to the principal's office. It's out of school suspension. You're like, oh my goodness. And it's like, for what? Nothing. And it's like, but this kid does this. And so, and obviously it's a case-by-case basis, like, right? No, you can't just blanket everything and be like, it's all fair, right? But generally speaking, what happens is when you have an unfair system, it creates like a 2 tiers. You have the favorite kids who get away with everything, and then everybody else. And that socially alienates people. They don't want to interact. They resent each other. And then basically that boils down to what I refer to as nepotism within the classroom. Okay, and that's a absolutely abysmal state to be in. Terrible. It's really bad because they don't respect you as much, they don't like you as much, and it grows to resent not only the teacher or the person in authority. The funny thing is, this doesn't just apply to teaching, right? This applies to workplace. For instance, you could have that coworker that's schmoozing with the boss all the time, and then they get the promotion, they get all these things, they get all these extra benefits, and you're like, I work just as hard, if not harder than them, and all of a sudden you're not getting anywhere, and you might get like a little infraction or something, and then all of a sudden the boss comes down really hard on you. So it's the exact same thing. Favoritism is not just limited to the classroom and like a tiny little thing. It's all over the place. It's a very big thing to wrap your head around. But anyway, so it ultimately breaks down into that idea of resentment, right? Resentment to the person who is in charge, and then resentment in the sense of like to the individuals that it affects. All right, so after doing multiple takes and continually trying to shorten the video, I kind of realized that it was a lot of content to just kind of smash into one video. So the second portion, it's been split in half, and I've uploaded the second portion as a separate video. So make sure to click on that. And yeah, until then, I'll see you. Have fun. Take care.